What's going on, guys? Pete and Trey with the OneCast coming at you from Martinsville, Virginia, Angler's Choice Open House. We're going to be hanging out here today. We're going to grab some anglers, some vendors, hear some stories, talk about some stuff. You might hear some background noise, the announcements stuff going on. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one. So make sure you check it out, and we'll see you.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
Hey guys, check it out. The OneCast is here at Angler's Choice Marine in Martinsville, Virginia. We are honored to have Matt Arey as a guest for probably over the next 10 minutes because you got a lot of stuff going on. So we appreciate you joining us here. Man, what's going on in your world right now?
Well, I've got a house full of women, so that's and when I say that, I've got an 11-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old daughter, and of course my wife, and well, even my dog's a female. I got a female golden retriever in the house, so yeah, I'm surrounded by females at home. But no, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's been a busy off season for us. We the girls have all of a sudden become Swifties. Imagine that, right?
Yeah.
And I was joking with somebody the other day because I said the funny thing about this is this Sunday. Let's see. I don't know what the date is, but the Chiefs are playing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're second round of the playoffs. Is that right? Maybe second.
I think
that's a
Yeah.
semifinal. It's a semifinal. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
championship. This is how much I keep up with NFL football.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Well, I'm a Panthers fan, so I went right down the toilet with them this year and kind of quit following it.
That's a diehard commitment right there.
Hey, look, I'm not a bandwagoner.
Hey,
I'm going to stick by them, just like I graduated from NC State. I'm going to stick by them
There you
regardless.
go.
We've stuck by our Wolfpack through a lot of good and bad over the years. So,
Absolutely.
but no, we're having all of a sudden we're having a NFL football party at the house this Sunday, and I was not even aware until about 2 or 3 days ago because the girls are all fired up there. And here's the thing: like down in the shop, I've got a TV, so me and the boys, the husbands of the ladies that are coming over, and they have one son. And then there's multiple other little girls coming over, their kids, and I'm gonna leave the TV in the house to the women, so when they see a glimpse of Travis Kelce and or Taylor Swift, they can go to screaming and doing their thing, and I'm gonna be down in the shop with the boys, and we can actually watch a football game and see what happens.
That's good, man. So a serious question. We did an episode a while back, and it was talking about the F1 bass introduction into 3 separate lakes in North Carolina, and
Mhm.
I don't know your involvement in that. But, there's a lot of people that are for it. There's a lot of people that are against it. What are your thoughts on, introducing those F1 bass into our lakes?
Well, the little bit that I know about it, I think the 3 test lakes, so to speak, is what Marty actually explained to me last year at this specific show. And he was talking about the water quality. They wanted to introduce those fish into 3 different lakes that were on different levels of water quality. Norman being the lowest water quality, and then I think it was Gaston was that one.
That's
so
right.
That's
Yep.
kind of a middle of the road. And then
Jordan.
yeah, it was Jordan. So I knew it was on that system, but and Jordan being the most fertile by
Yep.
far. I'll be interested to see what Jordan does and because Jordan's already producing giants. It's produced giants for years, and I'm sure it's because of how fertile that system is and just the way it sets up and where it's located, things like that. Norman is going to be the most interesting subject, right? Because that lake, it's dominated by spotted bass, super gin clear and 60 to 75% of the lake. But the majority of the time, this year's a little bit different. We've had torrential floods for like a month, but it's in a unique state right now. I hadn't seen that in years. I think the water's as high as it's been in years and years and years.
Wow.
But Norman is definitely going to be the one that I'm most interested in seeing as far as the growth rate. If they survive, number one, my take is when you dump a bunch of fingerlings, unless they're 7 or 8 inches long, into a lake slam full of spotted bass,
They're gonna get
water
eaten.
in it, they get chomped on because
That's right.
spotted bass will eat anything and everything. And of course, there's a pretty good population of hybrids in Lake Norman now too. And that really piqued my interest when they said Norman, because I mean a lot of the local guys are really on board about it. I'm not against it or for the Norman deal, but I think it was a good move to see how will it take to a lake of this quality. So I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, Norman's the closest lake I've got to the house as far as a lake where you can go out and practice techniques from top to bottom. You can catch a fish 12 months out of the year doing about whatever you want. Now, it might be a 12-inch spot, but you still get your line.
You're gonna catch
stretch.
it.
Yeah, you're going to catch something. So, if there's 7, 8, 9 pound F1s in there in a few years, you're not going to see me complaining.
Well, speaking of that, so we're talking health of the fisheries. Biologists say and Corey Oakley came on before, and he said usually anglers are about a year or 2 years ahead of the biologists when it comes to understanding the health of the fishery, right? We have a different perception. Obviously they're doing data analytics and taking samples and stuff like that, but we get to see it in real life.
Yeah.
You being from North Carolina, Norman being closest to you, outside of your busy elite schedule, which takes you all over the continent, if you have the time, if you have had the time to fish in North Carolina, what have you noticed about our fisheries over the past, let's say, 10 years?
Well, fisheries in general cycle, right? It doesn't matter where you are in the country, what system it's on, what lake it's on, how it sets up. Lakes cycle. That's just nature. That's the way it works. I have seen, you take as far as the Carolinas or North Carolina specifically, let's just say South Carolina. Look at Lake Murray. So Lake Murray, back when I was, a teenager, we won't say exactly how long ago that was, but it was a long time ago.
It was like 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years ago. That's right. And I fished in local bass clubs. Murray was one of our regular destinations. It's 2.5 hours from the house, full of grass, full of grass, full of giant bass, gizzard shad, threadfin being the primary forage, obviously crawfish and bluegill and things like that. But the shad made up the majority of the forage that back then. That lake has since done a full 180. It went from full of grass to no grass, okay, when they introduced those sterile grass carp, and they basically took all the grass out of the lake, with herring, bluebacks, introduced to the lake later on, and it becoming a crystal clear water herring dominated lake. And that lake is now, some of the old timers might argue with me, but that lake's as good as it's ever been. Now there was a downswing when the grass kind of went away before the herring. There was kind of a transition period to where it took a downturn as far as my experience and what I saw in the catch rates and things like that. But there again, like when you talk about fishermen and catch rates, that's such a small sample. Like it's hard unless the guys like Corey and stuff, they go out and actually shock the lake and tell you really what's there.
Yeah.
Our catch rates and what we see as fishermen are probably only 1 or 2 or 3% of what's actually in the lake.
Sure.
So I don't even know if that's an accurate, assumption to say, hey, this is what my buddies are doing and this is what's wrong with the lake or right with the lake. But Norman, let's just jump over to Norman real quick. Back in the same time frame when I was fishing club tournaments, it was all largemouth. There were no spotted bass in the lake back then. And if you caught 5 largemouth that weighed 9 to 12 pounds, you won tournaments up there. The past few years, especially this time of year, which obviously this is peak season for big pre-spawn fish, there's tons of 15, even 20 plus pound bags of spotted bass coming out of Lake Norman now. That lake, to me, the quality, the water quality, it's not supposed to be near as good as it was back in the day. It may be better. I don't know that. That's a biologist question. But as far as what I'm seeing from tournament anglers and what's being caught and what I've personally caught, the lake's in as good a shape as it's ever been in.
Yep.
So it's every lake's a little bit different in how it cycles and the timing of the cycle. Seen spotted bass get introduced to Moss Lake, a lake that I grew up fishing, and 3 to 5 years after spots were introduced to that lake, we saw some of the biggest spotted bass bags that we've ever seen in our immediate area. And then now it's kind of reverted back to where it seems like there's an overpopulation of spots, and the majority of them are cookie cutter 13 to 15 inches. So I don't know if that's true or not. I just know that's what I see.
Yeah.
And hopefully it cycles back to where, we have a age class of fish that is 3 to 5 pounds again in spots, and we get to catch those giant spots again. And I don't know the explanation for that, except maybe it's due to overpopulation and competition for forage. Because once you get too many fish in the lake and they're all competing for the same food source, then I could see that stunting their growth, along with water quality.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We did an episode and a big topic of discussion with Corey was, and hey, sorry folks, if you hear in the background, we're going to try to mute that out the best we can in the edited version. But that episode primarily was on, the health of the fisheries, but talking about Sharon Harris Reservoir, which everybody knew back in the day was littered with hydrilla, which is technically an invasive aquatic species here. And so
technically,
right. From our standpoint, that is what grows big gold, right? That's gold, right?
Yeah.
But, you're absolutely right. And that's the reason why North Carolina is pushing to remove the slot limit in Sharon Harris, because of exactly what you said. The overpopulation of 1.5 to 2.5 pound bass are competing with those giants, and they are just far more aggressive over the same amount of forage that has always been there. it's stunted the growth. And with that slot limits, it's really stunted the growth because a lot of people don't eat bass in general, but those who do, they can't because they're catching a lot of those fish that are in that 16 to 20 inch range that you couldn't even put in a live well. So
they're wanting to remove some of that class fish.
That's absolutely right.
Well, that's like the spotted bass on Norman. They put a no limit on Norman, catch all you want, keep all you want, no size limit, yada, yada, yada. But to your point, there's not enough guys out there that target bass to eat, So I don't even know if that's making an impact at all. I'm sure it's probably not. Norman's too big and it's got too many dang spots in it to really, for that to make an impact. I mean, it's a good attempt. But the biggest thing, and I've actually been on Corey's podcast. They came to the house and we did one in the shop one time, and we talked about, I talked about Texas Parks and Wildlife, and I could see them kind of smirk because it comes down to one thing. It comes down to money. And North Carolina, unfortunately, we don't have the funding that, Texas or California or Florida has to be able to do what we really need to do to our lakes. Those guys are doing the best they can with what they have to work with. And I know AFCO, actually one of my sponsors, gave a $25,000 grant to the North Carolina Wildlife Fisheries, and I think they did a kind of a cross experiment there to where they were looking at different states that really needed help, and North Carolina is one of them. As far as money's concerned, our wildlife department needs a lot more than they have to work with now.
I agree. And for, everyone that gets really upset about paying like excise tax and taxes on things, like, from Corey's perspective, it actually does go towards a good place, but it's such a small percentage, and they don't work off a huge operating budget. And unfortunately, that's exactly what we're talking about is the professionals speak the logistics and the amateurs speak the tactics. And we really need the logistics to support these fisheries. One more serious question, then I'm going to ask you a couple crazy ones. Pete, I don't want to dominate here.
You're good. You had a line you wanted to go down.
Hey, man, listen, I'm a fire for effect here. That's right. New guys coming into the Elite Series this year, young guns, knowledge gap is closed significantly with technology, with social media, with YouTube, all this stuff, right? What are your thoughts on the new angler generation coming into the elites at the youngest they've ever been, and how does that translate to you and the way that you fish, if you're going to change anything? Or
so I mean that's obviously like the biggest thing in the biggest conversation, the biggest trending conversation in our industry now is the technology, forward-facing sonar, yada yada yada. We don't have to go into all that because it's on every podcast out there in the U.S. and the world right now. We've done
a good job.
Yeah, we've actually never had an episode about it.
Hey, I applaud y'all for that.
Yeah,
we
never had one.
Brian and I on our podcast, we can't avoid it because the questions are coming in live, and we're like, well, we got 67 questions about forward-facing sonar.
That's why I didn't say that specifically.
I guess we should probably address one, but no, in all honesty, the younger generation, their access to information and the learning curve is so much smaller now than what it was when I was coming up. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying those guys aren't great anglers. They're phenomenal anglers, but what they're having to learn is in a much smaller box than what I had to learn. And what I mean by that is I had to learn patterns. I had to get experience on these lakes. I had to learn instincts. I had to learn 75 different ways to catch them from a foot to 100 foot of water. Not that those guys don't have to learn that, but now with the domination of forward-facing sonar and the technology, they have a much smaller concentration area. So in my opinion, I mean, and you people can argue that, but that's how all our tournaments are being won now. 8 of our 9 last year were won with forward-facing sonar. The only reason one of them wasn't is because it was the Sabine River.
Right.
And
my favorite.
This year, I predicted 8 of the 9 again will be won. The only one I predicted may not be won with forward-facing sonar was the Harris chain, but I'm going to retract that statement and say all 9 of them are going to be won with forward-facing sonar again. So to answer your question, the influx of the anglers and the how advanced they are based on where they need to be in the sport with electronics and how savvy they are with the new technology. That's they're above and beyond what we were when we first came in, because we had to actually go out there and learn the patterns and learn the instincts and learn the fish movements. And they still have to understand fish movements as far as where they set up, but it's just a smaller box. Like I say, it's just a smaller. So now they need 8 or 10 techniques to present these fish that they're seeing on forward-facing sonar, and they need to make sure they set their boat down around bass.
Sure.
But from there, it's not as much of running secondary windblown points with a whatever, a bladed jig or a crankbait anymore, because it's just, you can still do well in tournaments like that. And people always say, and we've talked about it on, well, there's John Cox. And I'm like, yeah, okay, there's John Cox, and nobody else in the world has ever been a John Cox. Just
Name
FYI.
one other guy that's
Exactly. I'm like, that's comparing apples to oranges.
That's why he's the only one ever referred in that
Exactly.
context. There's John Cox. Well, who else?
Yeah, exactly.
Crickets,
Exactly.
yeah.
There's a couple of guys that have had some success staying shallow. They might win a tournament here and there, but when we're fishing multiple day events, that's one of the biggest things. You need to be fishing for some of the biggest populations of fish in the lake, and you have to be a very versatile angler, but you also have to have fish to fall back on for 4 days in a row if you want a shot at winning the event. There's a lot of guys out there now that I've tried to embrace it because I know I have to. There's some of the veterans out there, some older guys, I wouldn't name any names, that, kind of refuse to embrace it.
Yeah,
and they're suffering because of it.
Right.
Some of them have been vocal. Well, that's out there. If anybody.
Oh yeah,
wants to look,
absolutely. I look, I completely, I don't disagree with them.
Yeah.
But I'm like, are you just going to go down in flames, or are you going to keep fishing professionally? So,
That's right.
like, I mean, you have a choice, and as long as bass allows it, I'm going to use everything I can to compete.
Well, you'd be stupid not to.
Exactly.
Right. There's a lot of money
You're only hurting
involved.
yourself.
But this is coming from Trey's mouth, not Matt's. But you can't replace intuition with technology, but you also have to learn technology and can't just rely on everything that you used to do. Right. So it's just
100%.
adaptability, flexibility, and being able to accept change.
Yep.
Right. That's just where it's at. So
It's where our world's at.
that's
There's lots of change.
You ain't lying
We
on
get
that
in a
one.
whole other direction, but
All right. The fans want to know, what is Matt Arey's favorite food?
I honestly,
If you said like sushi, I'm going to be like, all right, we're out of here.
I get burnt out on sushi. As you know, if you follow us on the road,
Oh, yeah.
Scott Martin, not Canterbury, his
Hollywood, right?
Yeah, Hollywood. if we all make the cut, we have cut sushi day, and but he would have cut sushi every day
Well,
if it was up to him. And like when we go to a sushi place, of course, all over the country where we go, you can imagine the variety of sushi bars we've been into. So, some good, some bad, but we won't go there and talk about how bad some of them were. But he usually is not shy about telling people if this place sucks or if it's really good. But I'm gonna go. We don't have this on the road, but one of my favorite foods is a good lamb chop.
good lamb chop.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say steak and all that like cliche like everybody
Sure.
else, but a good lamb chop, man, it's hard to beat for me.
That's hard to find. In fact, I can't remember the last time I had a good lamb chop. In fact, I think it was in another country.
Yeah,
I won't name the name of that country, but it was there.
you sure it was lamb?
We're gonna give her a
They said
90.
another country.
We're gonna
so-
give her a 95% here.
Okay, all right, good enough.
Awesome, man. Well, Pete, what do you got for Matt?
I'm going to ask a question because I know everybody wants to know, what event are you looking forward to most for 2024?
I've been asked this question a lot lately, and it's not one, but it's two events back to back, and it's in Florida. I've been to both fisheries, it's Harris Chain and St. John's.
Mhm.
Now I'm excited about going to Toledo Bend because I've never fished a professional tournament on Toledo Bend.
Okay.
So I am excited about that. There's going to be giants called, obviously.
Oh,
But the reason I'm excited about going to Florida in April is because my entire career, ever since I started fishing professionally, we've been to Florida almost every year, and that's where we typically start the season.
In February. Yep.
In February, January, February, maybe 1st of March, but I've never been there that late when it's going to be more stable weather. Obviously, January, February, you don't know what you're going to get in Florida. I mean, it could be a 30-degree freeze, or it could be a 75 degrees and sunny.
That's right.
And everything in between. But April in Florida should be stable weather, should be almost 100% post spawn by then. The fish should be eaten. It's just going to be different. It's going to be a different scenario than I've ever seen in Florida, and I'm excited about that. I do feel like the fish are going to bite really, really well, and there's going to be a couple great tournaments down there. So just because of the timing, I'm going to say Florida.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You think Scott's is that too?
Martin?
Yeah.
It's funny because Florida's kind of been a thorn in his side a little bit.
Isn't that weird how that works?
It is. I mean, he did well at Okeechobee last year, but I think Harris Chain, he's had some really good. He had a top 10 there last year. And then he had a really bad one there before. And then St. John's has been all over the map for him. But Florida's that way for everybody. Yeah. As good a Florida fisherman as Scott is, he's a testament to saying, look, you can go down there and win the tournament one year and go down there next year and finish dead last. Of course, Florida fisheries change so much due to the hurricanes and weather patterns in the fall. It changes the grass, the location of the grass, and it changes the fishery from time to time. Okeechobee's a perfect example of how much a lake can change in 365 days from one year to the next, just based on if a hurricane came through or not.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Absolutely, man. Well, we are looking forward to watching you guys on the road. I think you guys do an amazing job. I think it's on Scott's.
Yeah, we got to give all the credit to McCoy for that.
Yeah. So you guys do a fantastic job. Some of the best videography that's out there. I mean, and he hit it. He hit it when it needed to be hit back in the FLW days, like starting that, right? Because timing is everything.
100%.
And I think one of the newest and probably most intelligent people in the business game coming up is Milliken, right? He did a really good job, like working his way through. Mm-hmm. But he'll tell you, like, man, it's hard now in the YouTube days. So you guys do a really good job doing that. We're looking forward to you guys in 2024. Hopefully we can come to some events. But you know what? If not, I'll see you in 2025 for sure, because I'll be retired, man. You know what I mean? So
that sounds good.
Yeah.
I may get run out of this game with all these young hammers coming in.
Nah, man.
I'd like to do it. I'm 42. I'd like to do it, at least into my early 50s if I can stay competitive. So
absolutely,
we'll see. And good sponsors make a big difference. And I'm lucky to have a good team on my side and a good wife at home. And that makes a big deal too. So hopefully we can get another good 10 years out of it at least. Yeah.
Hey, if you're doing it and it's fun, it's not working, man. Matt Arey, thank you for joining us for the last 20 minutes. We appreciate your time. We hope you have a great show here at Angler's Choice Marine in Martinsville, Virginia. We are sitting here with Corey Johnston, and I had to look at his jersey because we always get the brothers mixed up, man. So we just met you today, literally like 5 minutes ago. We appreciate you jumping on, and you're like, yo, keep it real. Let's just ask away, right?
Yeah, open book. Let's whatever works.
Dude, what kind of kid were you in high school?
Man, I was actually I was a pretty calm kid. Didn't get in a lot of trouble, believe it or not. Few instances, but like I grew up playing hockey and sports, lacrosse, all that. So it was if I had a little anger, I'd take it out doing that. So I wasn't a crazy kid, but I had some fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, when like everybody, when they hear a family name, they're like, oh, the Thompsons or the Shandricks or whatever. When people hear the Johnstons, besides the fishing, because you guys have a pretty legacy fishing family up there, when somebody that knows you and hears the last name, like what do you think the first thing that comes to their mind is?
I think it probably depends on where you're at in the country.
In your hometown.
In my hometown, it's probably fishing, but like I said, my brother and I played hockey our whole lives. Chris is still playing senior A hockey right now, and it's fishing and hockey. It's we're big into the hunting too, so I think that's the other thing. But we also own a battery business back home.
Okay.
So we're kind of known for that around the town as well.
Okay. Well, what kind of battery business is it?
It's a wholesale retail, just a little shop, automotive, marine, industrial. My old man's owned it for like 40 some years.
Oh, cool.
So, it's just a little family shop, and been around for the city forever. So it's one of those staple places.
So I want to ask one question. I don't want to be cliche, but you're from Canada. You grew up playing hockey and fishing. Was there a time when you looked more like you wanted to do hockey professionally? Was that ever like a goal of yours, or was it always fishing?
No, I mean, I grew up in a bass boat, right? So, I've always wanted to fish, but, for a while, I had possibly a chance to maybe go and play hockey. But I was too stubborn. I had all the skills, and I like to fight way too much. And, when I got older, I just, it was something that I enjoyed doing, and, it wasn't the right decision looking back on it. I had, like I said, I had all the skills, had the hands and whatever. I just, I didn't really take on that role like I should have. And yeah, fishing was always something that, I always wanted to do. So it just kind of came natural.
Okay.
What, dude? You gotta, okay, because I grew up in a fighting family too, and listen, we don't condone violence by any means. Let me throw that out there as a disclaimer. But there are certain professions, such as ultimate fighting or hockey, where there's an acceptable level of risk associated with that sport. What is the worst injury you've ever sustained during a brawl on the ice?
Man, I've honestly been really lucky. I've lots of cuts and stuff like that. Nothing major. That's really it. Honestly, yeah. I've lost half of a tooth in my whole career, so that's pretty good. Yeah, never had a broken nose. Got punched out one time, couldn't see for a week. But nothing really major.
Okay. Well, we'll get it a little bit more exciting then on the fishing side. So, have you ever been in a fight when fishing? Not on the Elite Series or anything like that, but
no, not while fishing.
Yeah.
No, but like being away at a tournament, yeah. I hang out with some little rough and rowdy crowd, I guess you could say. There's probably 7 or 8 of us on the Elite Series that we all kind of hang out, and we'll have beers and whatnot. And there's been a couple occasions where things have heated up a little bit.
Yeah,
when we're out having a beer, for sure.
So here's a serious question, and I actually appreciate that, because I think sometimes in order to learn, you have to build some scar tissue,
sure,
right? Figuratively and literally. But growing up in a competitive environment where maybe your butt got handed to you a little bit physically, has that translated into being a competitor at the top level of bass fishing? Do you feel like it's associated?
For sure it is. I mean, you learn from your mistakes, right? It doesn't matter what you do. When you're fishing and you make a mental mistake and you're like, that was really dumb.
Yeah.
You learn from it. And when you go out and you do something stupid and you get your face punched in, you learn from it.
Yeah.
So 100% it's relatable.
Do you think some people just don't know what it's like to get their actual tooth knocked out?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone needs to one time. Just because.
Yeah. If you've never been drilled in the face, then you don't know.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, you got a lot of talk in the fishing world, which is a very small world, about, the generational gap closing as far as learning. But you also got a lot of people that are, and we try to not expose any negativity because there's so much of it that we don't need to talk about it. But do you, in your opinion, in your professional opinion, the youth that are coming up in the ranks in the fishing world, do you believe that they're as emotionally tough as maybe the old guard or your generation? Or do you think they're more like emotionally just, I don't know.
I think they're soft.
Okay, there you go. Let's throw it out there. Yeah,
they're soft. It's a different world now.
Yeah.
And honestly, I got 2 young kids, and like, I'm worried the world that they're going to grow up into, man. Like, you just, they get taught stuff at school where you're like, really?
Yeah.
Teachers are teaching you this?
Yeah.
And I just, I teach them the way that I would go about it. And I'm not saying that that's the right way at all, because we'll probably get them in trouble one day.
Yeah.
But, it's, I just teach them to be tough and, not be a wimp.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, I always say this to a lot of guys that, either I'm a leader of or I've been associated with. I think a lot of times outside of the law, which is great anyways, but I don't really think there's a lot of right ways and wrong ways to do a lot of things. I think there's better ways and worse ways. And I think that's about the only way we can parent our children is, and I know we're not even talking fishing here, but it is associated with growing up in the fishing world, which should be tough. It should be competitive. You should want to be better than every single person around you, but you can't do that if you don't have the fundamentals growing up to do that, right? And that's why you see people that get extremely emotional, or they'll hide on social media and they'll just be negative. We don't want that. Like, you got something to say it.
100%. Like, I'm the type of guy that if I have a problem, like, I'll walk up to you and say it to you. I'm
Yep.
not going to go on, the internet and,
Yeah.
message some dude and say, hey, I got a problem with you.
Yeah.
You know?
To build on that question, we hear a lot of times ethics and the way people act on the water and some of those kind of unwritten rules that we all grew up around. Do you feel like some of that's lacking with some of the younger generation? Like they don't feel the respect of giving space to other anglers and things like that?
100%. And I mean, it's a game where we're all in it to make money.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter if, my buddies are out there and, when we're on the water or we're on the ice, like, you're there to do a job.
Yeah.
And I can respect that. But, in certain situations now, a lot of these younger kids, they never grew up with, I don't know what the right word for it is, but they lack the respect or they don't know awareness. Yeah. Like, and they're just, they'll pull in, they just do stuff that, shouldn't be done.
Sure.
And, they should know better. But at the same time, I feel like they haven't been taught the proper way.
Well, let's teach them real quick. And I'm glad that Pete brought that up because that was literally burning in my mind. We talk about the rules and then we mention the unwritten rules. In your opinion, what are some of the most important unwritten rules and etiquette on the water, especially in a competitive environment?
Well, I mean, here's the deal is like with all the electronics now, everybody's going to find everything. And there's something to be said for, a guy that's found the spot. Multiple people have found the spot. The first guy there, he's the first guy there. He's going to fish it. The second guy pulls up, hey man, listen, I found this spot too. It's the first day of the tournament. Do you mind if I fish? Can I pull in? Can we both fish it? Yeah, no problem. Or, hey, listen, I want to fish it. Give me an hour, come back, let me catch my limit.
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be more people that talk to each other on the water rather than just pull up right beside a guy and, they start casting, fighting, and just more work together. Kind
of like seeing a little bit of a sense of entitlement sometimes, right?
For sure. And I mean, that's day one of the tournament. Day two, the numbers flip. So that guy's going to get there first the next day.
Yeah.
And if you're a dick and not going to let the guy fish or whatever, it could bite you the next day.
What goes around comes around.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. I'm really glad that you're honest about that stuff. And I don't think anybody that we've had on the show isn't honest. There are some that like to keep it a little bit more PC and stuff like that. But that you got to be honest with yourself and you got to be honest with those around you in order to garner respect.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So that's a huge deal. Did you have something, Pete?
No.
All right.
And I think to add on that, there's certain people that I would just pull up on and not talk to them.
Yeah.
Just because I don't have the respect for them because they've done something to me in the past.
Yeah.
But if, I pulled up to someone and, I respect them, they're good people.
Yeah.
I'd say, hey, you fish it. I'll come back later.
Yeah. Okay.
But certain situations I would just pull up.
Yeah.
So I think you talked about one. You didn't mention names, but I know there was one on Mercer's podcast. You talked about just that. Like,
yeah.
And I think it's not just younger anglers. For our younger listeners, I don't want to isolate you and think it's just you. There's plenty of people that have been in this game for a long time that think that they're entitled to something because they have a name or a reputation, whatever that is. But just because you're whoever you are doesn't mean everybody has to respect you. Like you said, you need to earn that respect. And we've been lucky to build friendship with some guys on the elites and other leagues and talk to them. And it's amazing the number of people that won't even wave to the other elite guys just as they pass, not like just give a wave and say hi.
Yeah.
And it's kind of disheartening, but at the same time, like I get it. You're like you said, everybody's there to try to make money. You're all there to do a job. You don't have to be friends with everybody. But that respect, like you were talking about, it's got to be mutual and it has to be earned. It shouldn't just be expected because of who you are. I think there's certain people that probably get away with it, like Bill Dance.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to respect Bill Dance.
Or like your, who was it, Rick Clunn? I think someone asked.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a black belt or something. Yeah, he is.
So I got a funny story about Rick Clunn. The first elite series I ever fished was on the St. Johns River. And
finished second.
That was my brother.
Oh, that was your brother.
I was like fifth or sixth or whatever.
That's right.
Oh,
anyway,
darn.
Yeah. So I was fishing this stretch of docks, and the first day I caught like 21 pounds off these docks. Day two, I started on the docks, worked my way up, and I get to the end of this little stretch, and Rick is coming down, and he had like maybe it was day 3, I forget. But anyway, he was coming down these docks, and I'd missed a fish on a dock. So I, had my poles down, and he's coming down, and he goes right between my boat and the dock. And I'm like, really? And he's like, I was fishing here yesterday. And I said, dude, I've been fishing here the whole time. I didn't see you. Like, so we kind of got into her a little bit. And, it was, this is where I have so much respect for the guy, because after he comes up, he says, hey man, I got to apologize. I didn't know that you were fishing there. And I said, I didn't know you were fishing there. And, we're all cool. Obviously. I mean, it's Rick Clun, right?
Yeah.
So, that's where I have so much respect for the guy. Cause he's like, 70 something years old. And he wasn't scared to tell me what he thought.
No, because he's a black belt.
Absolutely. He's a black belt. I guarantee it.
You gotta get the old roundhouse in the chin. If you
Absolutely. But yeah, it was cool. He jokes about it still to this day when we
That's
talk
cool,
and whatnot,
man.
but yeah.
But that's a good way to wrap up what you're talking about. Like, you can have those little conflicts on the water, but then after the fact, after competition's done, you can get together and say, hey, I probably wasn't right. You might have had some fault there too. It's all good. I apologize. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
that's cool.
So the last serious question I have for you, then I have some just random ass questions, right? Fishing in the elites, you have an individual brand that you're building. You're also, working for your sponsor's brand. You're working for Bass's brand. You're just like all around, like just working for so many masters, right? To include yourself. So then there's the competition part. How critical, and you and your brother have been a team, right? But how critical in the elites is it to work as a team, and can people get away with doing it as individuals?
I mean, 100% you can do it as an individual. I think the important thing, if you were going to work together with someone as a team, is having 100% trust.
Yep.
And that's the hardest thing out there, because, really in the back of your mind, you don't really know if they're being 100% honest with you.
Yeah.
And that's where Chris and I, it works so good, because, we're the same person on the water.
Yep.
We throw the same stuff, we fish the same way, and that's all that we know. And if he says I'm going into this pocket and he checked it, I know that I don't have to go in there, because he checked it the same way I would, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you have the right person, it can definitely benefit. You can cover twice as much water, twice as quick. And it just helps to be able to break down new bodies of water quicker.
Have you seen households fall apart that used to travel with each other?
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's probably because of a lack of trust, right?
It is. And that's what it is every time.
Yeah. Have you ever considered taking polygraph machines with you and asking each other?
Well, if Chris lies to me, I'll hurt him.
Yeah.
I just think it's fun. I mean, because we had John on earlier in 2023, John Cruz, and I think we asked him that question.
Yeah,
It was like, how critical is a household? And you almost have to, anytime you have a new household, the senior of that household who's been doing it for a long time, you almost have to groom the rest of the anglers. Like, this is how you be a house together. This is how you share information. You don't share too much here. There's certain areas where you share, because at the end of the day, we're still all competing against each other, right?
And like when you say a house, like we stay with Matt Robertson and Fider.
Yep.
And I mean, Chris and I will, help them out a little bit if they need it, but for the most part, we don't share too much information with them, and they don't share too much with us. But if one of us is like, hey guys, like I'm struggling, can you throw me a bone? Then yeah, we help each other out a little bit.
Is it because they have mullets?
Well, yeah. Obviously.
I mean, somebody said you can't trust somebody that don't drink, but is it the mullets? And it could be associated with that.
It could be the rusty hooks that Matt uses. And I'm hoping we get a chance to grab him, because I got to ask him about this.
Yeah.
He's not here today.
Oh, he's not?
No, he had to fly to Chicago.
Chicago.
Oh, yeah, the Chicago
no.
show. I feel bad for him now.
Yeah.
Couple random questions. Growing up, dude, what was your favorite band?
I can't really say that I had a favorite band. Like,
What was your genre?
Always pretty much country.
Yeah.
Like I'm like a northern hillbilly.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
A,
Like,
a nillbilly.
yeah.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Favorite beer?
Coors Light,
Really?
Michelob Ultras.
Mickey's in the mountains, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not Bud Light.
Okay. So we're not going. So we're going to stick with like classy white trash beer. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Same here. You know? Same here. Favorite food?
I got to say, like a good steak. I like a good
A
steak.
good steak.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think Matt Arey's was a few minutes ago?
Cheeseburger.
No.
I don't know.
It was a lamb chop.
Really?
A good
I
lamb
wouldn't
chop.
have guessed that.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't think even I heard that word in the last 20 years.
Probably
Lamb
not.
chop, except for the show.
Yeah. I wouldn't have guessed that. It would take me a while.
Favorite show growing up. Besides
I didn't
the
watch a
outdoors?
ton of TV, man. Like,
Okay.
when I watched TV, it was like hunting or fishing.
Okay.
Watch the hockey games on TV. But I wasn't one to sit around a television. Like, I'd be outside, you know, chasing critters around when I was a
Yeah.
kid with BB guns and, you know, just being outside.
Okay. Personal best largemouth bass.
10 pounds.
Even?
Yeah. On
You're-
the button.
His,
Like,
his
I'm
scale.
going to say personal, like on a tournament lake. I've probably caught a bigger one or two,
Yeah.
like on a private lake or something, but I don't
Yeah.
count.
Yeah, they don't count.
All right, last one. PB brownfish, smallmouth.
Oh, I don't even know. 7
7
something.
something.
So yeah,
I
like,
figured as
just
much.
over 7, I would say.
Awesome.
Like, you've had a bunch of them where you're like, that's a nice one, let it go. And you're like,
Yeah.
probably 7
Probably.
something.
Yeah,
you know?
probably could have put that one
Yeah.
on scale.
Yeah.
Last one. I said last one. Mercer asked you to say something about your brother that, you know, makes him so successful on the water. What is the worst thing about your brother?
Oh man, he put
What
you on the
is,
spot there.
what is the pet peeve that drives you? Like, I'll tell you mine, right? Mine about certain people.
I know what it is.
I can't stand when people are crunching chips next to me. That deserves a
I got
big,
2 things.
Okay.
Okay.
He is late for everything. That pisses me off. Like, I mean, like to the
Habitually
point where
late.
I leave him in the driveway to go to a tournament. Like, how hard is it to show up on time?
Yeah.
So the other thing is, and this is partially why he's late all the time. So when he was a kid, like grade 4, he had like an interception of the bow,
Okay.
and he had to get surgery. Almost died, and he stinks. Like, I mean, like unbearable. If he shits his pants, like, I mean, like, I'm talking on a
Bad.
bus trip, on a hockey trip, like, clear the bus.
Wow.
Like, I mean, it's
Foul.
unbearable.
Foul. I mean, you're going in the penalty box for that.
Oh, you're suspended for the year. Like,
Lifetime.
But he's good now, right? We can laugh about it.
oh yeah, no, he still
he's
stinks,
good.
but
Oh, he
he's good.
stinks, but yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Pete, you got any questions?
No man, you nailed them all.
You got any closing comments, man?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
Thanks for having me.
what we appreciate is the real conversation and you taking 21 minutes and 20 seconds out of your time here at English Choice Marine in Martinsville, Virginia. Folks, we are going to wrap it up with Corey Johnston from the Bassmaster Elite Series and all the other things he has going on. We wish you well in the 2024 season and beyond, brother.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yep. All right, guys, welcome back to the OneCast. We just had Matt Arey on and Corey Johnston. We appreciate those guys joining us. And we have the pleasure of having Mr. Marty Stone join us today here on the OneCast. We're up here at Martinsville, Virginia, and Angler's Choice Marine for their annual open house event, correct? So we just want to say thank you very much for joining us. We have a couple topics of discussion. So if you want us to get right into it, go ahead. Or if you got any opening comments, open it up.
No, I don't need any opening
No.
comments. I have a feel we'll be knee deep into it before we get rolling.
That's right. I think everybody knows who you are, Marty. You just finished up working with Major League Fishing, correct?
Yep, that's correct. And on October 13th, 2023, which is a Friday the 13th,
Ooh.
which was my 58th birthday,
Oh,
Really?
Major League Fishing called me and told me my services were no longer needed.
Okay.
And so we've transitioned into the next phase. And as I told a lot of people, that if I'm half the man of faith I claim to be, it caught me a little off guard, but it didn't catch God off guard.
Yeah.
And we're Cadillacing along. I'm living up at Kerr Lake now, and I get to see that pretty lake every day. And got a couple things in the works that we're going to be announcing here pretty soon. I've got Plan B. I've got the greatest job in the world. I work for A&K Dock Service there at Kerr Lake. We install floating docks. I've got 2 crews, and these guys are phenomenal. We're 2 years behind, and actually 16 months when I started. We were 2 years behind. And I'm on the lake, but I also now have capacity that I can do some other projects that I've always wanted to do that's going to be in and around the outdoor industry, not only fishing, but some hunting as well.
Awesome.
It's going to be found on the Instagram right now. An old guy getting into Instagram,
Hey.
MJS Outdoors, where you can find it at. But we've got some things here, other things we're going to launch too.
Well, you know what? Now that you're honorably discharged from Major League Fishing, we're going to roll ahead with the dock business. But we do have some questions for you. And first of all, before we start, you said Kerr Lake. Is it Kerr, Carr, or Bugs Island? Which one is it?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And everybody look at it because most people don't even know the history of Bugs Island. The reason it was Bugs Island is there's a little island below Bugs Island, and people say from the air it looks like Bugs Bunny. That's thinking things on Gaston.
Yeah.
So we're not even on Carr or Kerr Lake when you say it. So when you go Bugs, the locals know it, and then whether you're a North Carolinian or a Virginia person, whether it's Carr or Kerr.
Okay.
So you should just say yes and move on.
I got you.
That's
All right.
fair.
Well, we're going to move on and
We
say,
won't get in those
we'll
arguments.
say yes. So, we are really adamant here on the OneCast to educate and inform and continue building a culture of anglers helping anglers one cast at a time. That's our motto, right? And a way to do that is to understand where we stand in North Carolina, but, across the country at large. But in North Carolina, what we've got the F1 bass introduction. We talked a little bit about that with Matt Arey, but I know that you were very integral in spearheading that program. So before we talk about all the other fisheries or the fisheries in North Carolina, what are your thoughts on the F1 bass introduction, and what do you think that's going to do for us?
Yeah, obviously myself, Chuck Murray, Keith Joyce, we were kind of spearheaded this thing of North Carolina anglers for the F1 project in that, and you can find those online and throughout. And there was some other groups before us too. They were more lake specific. I think there was one or two other groups down at Lake Norman that did that. But what I liked with what we were trying to do was the fact that it wasn't a lake specific, but it was more of a statewide deal. I've been around F1s forever and forever. And the first introduction I ever had was the editor of Bassmaster Magazine, who's still there now, James Hall. He took me down to a lake in Alabama, and he said, come on, we got to go down here and catch some of these fish. It's F1s. I'm like, there's no difference between an F1 and F15. But I went down there, and all of a sudden, there's these 3 to 5 pound bass that we were catching. They were extremely aggressive, extremely strong, and even James called them, so that means they were dumb as a rock.
Oh,
okay. So that was my first intro. Fast forward to now, today, Texas by far is leading the way with F1s and all that Cheryl Lunker program they've got.
Yep.
Texas is normally 20 to 25 years ahead of the whole country. But the new buzzword now is an F1. And a lot of times it's the education of an F1. What is an F1? So in theory, here's what it's supposed to be. That bass is 50% Florida strain, meaning it can grow really big. The other 50% is a northern fish, meaning it's really aggressive. So when you combine the two and form the F1, now you have a bass that grows really big and is aggressive. A lot of times with the Florida strain fish, it can grow really big, but it's very water temp sensitive.
Sure.
So it's not as aggressive. Now an F1 gets really big and it's really dumb. And so when biologists and fisheries management stock fish, it's about the growth of the fish, but more importantly, it's about angling experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
You put pure Floridas in our area, you're going to have some really big fish that won't bite.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, next thing you know, our anglers as a whole are going to go, well, that didn't do any good. I am not catching any more or any bigger.
Right.
Right.
So now we did the intro. So here's where North Carolina State is, where our North Carolina State Fisheries is at on that. They've got committed for 4 years. They're going to do this stocking program, and they chose 3 lakes. They chose Lake Norman, they chose Jordan Lake, and they chose Lake Gaston. And here's why they chose them. They did it based upon fertility. Lake Norman is considered a very low fertile lake, and it's also infested with spots. Now, I'm not going to get you on my opinion of that. That's like talking Baptist and Methodist, Democrat and Republican, right?
Yep.
Everybody's got an opinion. Nobody wants to hear any of it. I also do know, though, that our state fisheries are saying right now the creel limit on spots. There is no limit. There's no size restriction.
Yep.
Because they consider it a species if you're not careful, and I can give you examples of that, how it'll take over a lake. But anyway, So we're putting F1s in Norman. We're going to see after 4 years when they start doing the surveys, did it have an impact? Did we at least get some result from that? And if we did, how big did they grow? Is it going to move the needle or not? And that way, if it does move the needle, then they can go to low fertile lakes throughout the state and possibly do some more enhancement.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then we go to Lake Gaston, which is a mid-fertile lake. It's middle of the road. Some areas of it's fertile, some areas not. It has some spots in it, but not completely taken over. Again, what impact after 4 years will the F1s have on it? And the blueprint will be built. And then if the F1s are impactful, then our state can go to mid-fertile lakes and do additional stockings. And then obviously Jordan's the cat's daddy, right? It's the most fertile lake we have in there. I lost on that because I said, why fool with Jordan? I wanted to put him in falls.
And it's the same. It was the same conversation we had. With why Jordan?
I wanted him in falls personally, but I obviously don't run the program, and it's closer to the house. Too. Right. All right, let's go ahead. When you're self-serving, you admit it. Yeah. But Jordan's a super fertile lake. I really do believe, in my mind, within the next 4 to 6 years, we're going to break the state record because I've seen how these fish grow. I know it's going to be successful in Jordan. So they did this stocking, and then what we wanted to do, what our hope and goal was to create additional interest in funding. I had the goal of $300,000. We ended up with 30. I was disappointed others told me to be ecstatic. I envisioned that 3,000 anglers in the state of North Carolina could all contribute annually $100. Yeah. I'm not asking for a lot here.
Sure.
Okay. $300,000, and at the time the state had a 4-to-1 matching program that would have turned into $1.2 million to add to the additional stockings we had. We got 30,000, so it was $120,000 that they were able to fund for 2024, this upcoming year, and those fish cost 50 cents each.
Okay.
So we're adding 240,000. They were going to hit. We agreed with the North Carolina State Fisheries that you're going to be a certain limit. In other words, if I did raise the 1.2 million, or we North Carolina anglers raised the 1.2 million, they weren't going to put 2.4 million fingerlings in those 3 lakes, right?
Right.
So we were going to take the additional money and start funding for our own hatcheries, possibly down the road. Because right now we're at the mercy of other hatcheries, other pricing. So now we can control the number of fish and the pricing we had. That's the long-term vision. I still hope that this program, as raising additional monies, continues to take hold. But here's what I found out. Here's some limitations to it. Unfortunately, North Carolina anglers right now don't hold our North Carolina fisheries in high regard. They've seen a lot of mistakes. And our North Carolina fisheries got blamed for things that they shouldn't take the blame for, like spraying the grass at Sharon Harris.
Yep.
They had nothing to do with that.
Not to cut you off, but go back and listen to our episode with Corey Oakley, and he will explain exactly why that grass isn't there anymore.
Yep. So, not to blame. Now, and you mentioned Corey Oakley. I asked Corey Oakley, and I've yet to get a straight answer on this because I had so many anglers want this. Our vision at first was everybody contribute to the state. Mm-hmm. All right, it's a statewide program. More and more, I saw anglers hesitate because they couldn't contribute to their specific lake. And I'm like, okay, then I want the state to give us permission to be able to, Trey, when you donate and you want it strictly for Jordan, that dollar amount goes strictly to Jordan.
Right.
When it goes to Pete, you want Gaston, then it goes to Gaston. For my Lake Norman brethren, when they want it just to Lake Norman, it goes for Lake Norman. If that's what, and overwhelmingly, that's what I heard the anglers say. I asked Corey last fall by an email, and I've never got a response yet. Can we do this? Yes or no? I just want to know yes or no.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best things that's ever happened for our state. But the anglers have spoken. They will contribute, but I think they will contribute significantly more. And that's going to become a contest. Right. Hey, Lake Norman, they produced $100,000. Lake Norman, you're at $10,000. Lake Gaston, you're at $20,000.
Yeah.
If you really care about your lakes and you want to make it better, vote with your pocketbook.
Yep. Yeah. I think and it's easier to measure data against that. It's going to show you where anglers based on aggregate percentages are focused on the healthcare of, or the health of that fishery, right?
Yeah.
And you would definitely see that. You would see the margins across the state of North Carolina for sure.
And
right?
It's not that hard in today's world to keep up with that type of statistical data, right?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the North Carolina fisheries to step up and say, yay or nay, we can do that, because we're providing the private funding to them. we can have a box in there that says this donation goes for the whole state, or it goes for Jordan, or it goes for Gaston, or it goes for Norman. And here's what else we're going to find out. So Lake Norman, that's the hot button, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize
They're all
how
gonna
hot
get
the
eaten
button
by the
was gonna be.
spots.
Yeah. So if Lake Norman, is it the vocal minority that's controlling the narrative, or is it the silent majority? And here's what I mean by that. If we find Lake Norman all of a sudden spikes in their contributions, that's anglers at Lake Norman saying, we want those darn F1s and we're tired of spots.
Yeah.
Okay. They spoke with their pocketbook. Or a year later, Lake Norman is given very little funding to this. Then let's listen to the angler. Why introduce F1s where people don't want them?
Yeah.
Now, that's original concept, right?
Sure.
If that's what they don't want, because the last time I checked, our North Carolina fisheries is there to serve the fishermen.
About as close as it gets to saying your vote does count, right?
Dollars count.
Dollars count.
Dollars count. So I think if we were able, and I wasn't for this at the beginning. At the beginning, I really wanted it to be whatever we raised, we split it equally 3 ways. But I talked to too many people that were hesitant or contributed less than they would have if we could have earmarked the lakes.
Okay.
So let's put it in that, let the anglers have a vote. If they want to make Gaston better and they feel strongly about the F1s, they'll vote with their pocketbook. If they want to make Jordan better and they want the F1s, they'll vote with their pocketbook. If they want to make Norman better and they want F1s, they'll vote with their pocketbook. And again, I'll go back, I'm picking on the Norman guys a little bit, but if they don't want the F1s, and any other lake for that matter, then we'll know from the pocketbook contributions. And then the state should be flexible enough to go, they don't want it. Why are we putting them there? Where else can we find a non-fertile lake that we could put this stocking at?
Sure.
Surely in North Carolina, it's not going to be that hard to find a non-fertile lake.
That's true.
Wiley?
Yeah. What, Heiko? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah,
See?
Heiko's a great one. So I'm going to coin this term. I actually don't know. And we did donate. We donated money to the
As I
F1,
as well.
right? So, but I'm going to say if anglers want to get on board to supporting Operation Basszilla, right? Because we're trying to grow big, aggressive bass.
They're dumb.
Where
And
dumb, big,
dumb, aggressive.
Yeah. So Operation Basszilla, coined by us, right? Where can they go to support this?
Yeah, North Carolina anglers. Now y'all got me on the spot.
That's okay. We'll put the link in.
I've had the link in our description before. I'll put it back in there.
Now I'm a week without looking at it. Bass Anglers for North Carolina Lakes.
There we go.
I think that's the simplest way to be able to find it.
Bass Anglers for North Carolina Lakes.
Right.
Okay. So speaking on the lakes.
Yep.
In totality, so we were talking about fertility or nutrient rich or lack thereof lakes. What about from your perspective, because you traveled around so much around the country with Major League Fishing, and actually the Bass Pro Tour is coming to our neck of the woods in 2024, going to the Roanoke River. We'll see how many lower units they go through.
You're welcome.
But well, it was pretty obvious. Like, I wonder who made that decision, right? Or influenced that decision.
And then they fire me. Gee, thanks.
So
it was called cost cutting too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
was fired.
That's always the nice way.
I was fired.
Yeah, honorably discharged.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm
So,
a coin there.
There you go. So, in your perspective, in your opinion, the total North Carolina approach to our fisheries, what are we looking like from your history of growing up in North Carolina, from Fayetteville or Fayetteville as we call it, right? What does it look like now?
Man, that's a really good and fair question. And I can't, our North Carolina fisheries, they operate, our fisheries management program or department, they operate on such a fraction of a budget compared to Texas, right?
Yeah.
So for me to sit here and just beat them up would be the easiest thing to do. Anybody can take the low hanging fruit. I think they do a pretty good job with what they've got to work with. And I will say this as well. If just with a little bit of managing things from a 30,000 foot view and not being so focused on where the masses are not fishing, AKA walleye, AKA some type of saltwater fish down at the coast that
Yeah.
nobody's ever heard of, or something. Because they told me at one time 40% of their budget's generated from bass fishermen. Okay, if 40% of your budget's generated from bass fishermen, then make bass fishermen the focal point. All right, I said all that to say that.
I can't argue, because you're right. There's a lot of focus on trout in the West. There's a lot of focus on walleye coming back, and there's not a lot of focus on bettering our bass fisheries outside of this F1 attempt and a little bit of trying to put some grasses back in. But I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
It did it the politically correct, nice way.
Well-
You just want to dagger. And look at this boat show. How many walleye boats you see?
Like
I don't know.
3, but I don't know. It looks like they've been here.
Those
for
are
a
like
while.
ski boats.
Yeah.
But so, okay, but,
But
you know,
let me.
go ahead. Go ahead.
The overall health of our fisheries.
Yeah.
I think we've got some really good fisheries. I really do. High Rock to me is one of the best in the country. I wanted red crest there, so we took our Super Bowl to the Toilet Bowl, but that's another conversation. I felt it would better served at High Rock because of the fish they're catching. The Chowan River is on fire. Let's give our North Carolina fisheries management team a shout out on that, because those rivers got decimated
Yep.
during all those hurricanes.
That's right.
And they all worked hard. They worked tirelessly. There was multitude of restocking programs that happened, and now it's where it's at. And I think the Chowan River is going to be. I've got some people that have mixed feelings about us being there. Some people are ecstatic that we're going to put it on the map. Some people hate me because we're going to put it on the map.
I'm one of those mixed feeling guys.
Yeah, all right. You're the same guy that sent me a nasty text
And
the
I
first
mis-
time we ever did Jordan.
I misspoke earlier. I said Roanoke, but it actually says Chowan on the schedule, right?
Yeah, but it's Roanoke.
But they all
It's all right.
connect.
It's all.
It's just like when we went on the Bass Pro Tour and we come to Jordan, Sharon, Harrison Falls the first time. And man, I'll never forget me and Chad Gee. We were walking through the parking lot the day before the event because that's when we were doing stuff on site.
Mhm.
And half the anglers like, can't believe you did this to us. This place sucks. It's going to be bad. It's going to be. So it's like 7 foot up in the bushes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chad's like, man, you're taking it on the chin. I'm like, hold on, big guy.
Hold on, but yeah.
I'm writing all these names down. And I did.
Yeah.
I wrote them all down. It told me what an idiot I was from bringing them there. And then Kelly Jordan catches 88 pounds the first day. And then I got another group. So my friends from North Carolina are blowing me up on the phone, going, man, I can't believe you showed the world what this place. So I got people on the Bass Pro Tour that hate me because we went there because they said they weren't going to catch them until they got their first score tracker update.
Yeah.
The first fish was like 7 pounds.
Yeah.
Then I got the locals hating me because I showed the world, and then nobody could get on the ramp for 2 hours the prior year.
That's right.
Those are good fisheries.
Yeah.
Sharon Harris, Jordan Falls, I'll put them against anybody, anytime. Gaston and Kerr are still good tournament lakes.
Yeah.
Kerr, you can spread out and cycling down, but we all know it comes and goes. Kerr Lake is a perfect lake for F1.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying because I'm living on the shores of Grassy, but if you're wondering where to put them in Grassy Creek.
Yeah.
All right? That's just, and see, here's something I didn't know either. I know I'm digressing.
No, you're
Did you
good.
guys realize, and I didn't know this, Gaston is managed exclusively by our North Carolina Fisheries
Even-
Department.
Okay.
And Kerr is managed exclusively by Virginia.
I did not know that.
I didn't either until we went through this whole process. So when I found that out, obviously I'm calling the guys in Virginia going, hey, how about the F1s in Kerr? And they're like, we got to wait to see what the data looks like in Smith Mountain Lake. I'm like, look at the last 6 years of tournament.
Right.
It would,
Yeah, I'll show you.
I don't need electronic survey to show me what it is. It would work. It would absolutely. But I didn't know there was a separation. So Virginia and North Carolina got together and said, North Carolina, you take care of Gaston. Virginia, you take care of Kerr. And that's why we got the F1s on Gaston.
Yeah.
Because now it's policed, patrolled by both North Carolina
Yep.
and Virginia, because I think I've gotten a ticket from both sides of the fence over there, hypothetically speaking. But we have got some really good fisheries.
Yeah.
We do. Baden, Tuckertown, Tillard, God forbid there ever gets a spot in there. Baden.
What do you mean? The spot where?
Yeah, Tillery's already there.
They're already there.
Yeah, and that's and you know what? Here's what I'm going to say on that too, without taking a complete side. And here's where Corey and the rest of the guys got it right. I'm not a biologist. I'm going to go out on the limb and say you two are not a biologist.
Nope.
Let's quit pretending like we are and quit transporting fish
Yep.
to where they don't belong, because now we're giving our North Carolina Fisheries Department, that's already strapped for people and resources. Now we're throwing another element in there that they've got to account for as they try to design their long-term plans. If your lakes got them, great. You love them, great. Talking about spots. Leave them the crap where they are and quit putting them in your live well and transporting the darn things. And now introducing a whole nother element into our fisheries that we don't need.
We got to stop the bucket biology.
Yeah.
It's got to stop.
So, I mean, if you're a big spot guy, great. Enjoy it. Go to the
Go
lakes
to Lanier.
That's a success story.
Yeah.
Too. And if, as you're transporting the stupid things, also realize this now. Corey, like, this is not biologically proven. Spots to be successful, they're going to have blue. They got to have bluebacks.
Yeah.
Tuckertown, Baden, Tillery don't have bluebacks.
Right.
So them things are going to eat something, and it's going to be bass fry.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
we're gonna turn them the other way.
Yeah.
But there's my soapbox. I'm sure y'all get a lot of wonderful comments after that one.
You're good.
I mean, it's totally fine. Like, we want the truth, you know, we want, and everybody's opinion is their version of their truth. And Corey is very much in line with exactly what you said. Like, the reason the spots are in the lakes they're in is no other reason than people transporting them there, right? Now you have introduced a new species competing in the same ecosystem as the native species. That's a problem, right? It's going to change things. We don't know if it's going to change it for the worse or better, but
Probably
we're
for the
trending down with some of those lakes. So your perspective is very important because, you know, anglers, from what the biologist said, are usually a year to 2 years ahead of the biologist in knowing what the fisheries look like, you know?
And when I'm talking to those guys over there too, and they were adamant about if all they did was dedicate 724 to spot management, using all their resources, they can't manage it.
Yeah.
So they're asking the fishermen to manage it. And the manage is there's no creel limit, there's no size restriction. And from what I hear, they're really good eating. It's people have to understand. Yeah, I love to deer hunt in Texas.
Yeah.
And I love these high fences because that's why I like to hunt.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, bad, or indifferent. Lakes are underwater high fences.
Yeah.
They only have a certain amount of capacity
That's right.
and a certain amount of fish they can support. When we add that additional fish that is prolific as a spot, and it has been shown time and time again, and I can give you example after example in a lake, they will breed the largemouth and smallmouth completely out of the population, and they will move them completely in the back of the creeks. Most people don't realize that when two largemouth or two smallmouth are on the bed, a male spot, he's the only one that does this, has the ability to go by and spray the eggs.
Really?
Yes, that is a scientific proven fact, not only from Corey, but I've heard it from multiple biologists who I respect greatly. So they'll do what they call spraying the eggs. That's how you create mean mouth. You've heard people talk about
absolutely.
smallmouth spot.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's that spot coming
Lake James.
by. And so people are like, how do you breed smallmouth completely out of there? Well, if that spot sprays those eggs enough, eventually the dominant, that smallmouth fish will eventually die and get old. And if all its eggs have been sprayed and it's got a smallmouth spot combination, then you're going to end up with a lake full of spots or mean mouth.
Yep.
And that's Lake James.
That's exactly what's happening.
It has no significant population of smallmouth left.
I think Corey, when we had him on early last year, he said they haven't had 100% smallmouth DNA test in Lake James in like 4 years,
right?
In their shock zone. So
yeah, I think it's important. You know, like I said, we want to educate and inform everybody. You know, if you're serious about protecting our resources and making sure that our kids, our grandchildren can continue to go out and have fun, you know, maybe catch a Basszilla or something like that, you're going to take this stuff seriously. So appreciate their perspective on that. I do have one question for you. It's not related to North Carolina, but
here we go.
But
now we're going to get into the
No. This is a good one. Now that you're not necessarily traveling all over the continent, are you finding more time to fish?
You know, that's a fair question and a good question. So I am blessed beyond belief with Angler's Choice. And this is a shameless plug, but it's also true. I ran a boat out of this dealership 35 of the 40 years I've ever owned one.
Yeah.
That shows how old I am, for one. And every boat I've sold in the last 4 years has left in 50 hours on it.
Wow.
I mean, it's the live wells in this last one's not even broke in yet, which people will argue that the last 4 years I fished tournaments, my live wells weren't broken in anyway because I didn't use them that much. But this year I do plan to fish more. I absolutely, because I don't have the strain of being gone all the time.
Right.
I'm going to fish some Angler Choice team events with my son.
That's fantastic.
We got 4 that we're going to do at Kerr. I'm going to get into some ABAs. I think they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
They've got a couple really cool things going on, and I'm looking at a couple cat trails as well.
Cool.
So, but my rule of thumb is going to be if I can't sleep in my own bed at night because I'm living on the shores of Kerr, I don't want to do it. I want to fish now because I want to, when I want to, not because I have to.
That's right.
And I'm excited. I'm excited for the first time in a long time that I'm going to get to go donate my money on a regular basis to the people in these local team trails.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm getting ready to knock the dust off some rods and go out there and tell everybody how bad I really was.
Well, you're probably going to see our ugly faces around the area, and we look forward to seeing you on the water as well in 2024 and beyond. Before I jump off, Pete, what do you got for Marty?
We nailed it. We covered what I wanted to talk about with Marty. I think it's important we get the information out there for the F1 programs and get more than just the biologist side and what we're trying to do. So if you do listen, Corey, we love you. You're a friend of the show, but hopefully our listeners blow your email up and let him know if designating the funds to a specific lake is what you want to see and will help you donate to this cause. Shoot Corey, shoot the Wildlife Resource Commission an email and let them know, hey, we're glad to donate to this cause and help the state, but we want to be able to appropriate those funds to the lake that we want them to go to.
Yeah.
Well said. And here's, even if they get to where they say we can't do that, let's remember this. It's for the overall good of the lake.
Yep.
Sure.
This was a start. I was disappointed because we only raised $30,000, and I should probably be, half empty, half full. I should be grateful for the ones that did participate and did donate, like yourself, myself, and others. Thank you. For the ones that are on the fence, okay, get off the fence. Even if we can't get it where you can donate to your specific lake, it's for the veteran. Because if this program is successful and we participate heavily, then we can expand it throughout the state. And here's what I'll also caution. Corey and his group allowed us, for the first time that I ever know of, to work on a statewide project in conjunction with them.
Yeah.
Now, there's those in it like Norman, we did it years ago. That was lake specific. It was, and I commend those people for doing it.
Yeah.
It didn't gain a lot of traction, but it did happen. They were the first. They were the unique. What we're wanting to do is to do a statewide project that can continue in longevity.
Yeah.
And if we anglers don't vote with our pocketbook, after 4 years, the state's going to go, it really wasn't that important.
Yeah.
So we're back to trout and walleye, which I have nothing against either. I think both taste very good. All right? But I'm selfish. I'm looking at all these boats. I'm looking at all these kids. I'm looking at all the pressure we have on our lakes. We have more pressure than ever now. Our lakes cannot sustain it. And if they can't sustain it, then how are we going to supplement it? So whether you agree whether it should be your lake specific or the overall program, when you vote by not contributing, you're also voting for the long-term failure of the sustainability of this program. And to me, I'm old enough, it's not going to matter. Right? But for my kids 10, 15, 20 years down the road, if we're the foundation and the continuation of this, where it can expand throughout the state, we better vote right here and right now. I don't care where you stand on the fence spot-wise.
Right.
I think we will all agree that our North Carolina lakes, as all the other lakes in the country, need some help.
Right.
Need some help. Vote.
Yep.
Vote by writing that check. It's going to go for a good cause, and then we'll let the details work themselves out. I'm going to be the proponent going to let the anglers vote for the specific lakes. The state might push back and go, we can't do that. At the end of the day, we both want the same thing.
Yep.
We want our lakes better. We want to grow bigger fish, and we want to grow bigger fish that are more aggressive, that enhances the angler experience for each and every angler that's on the water.
Yeah. God, I could listen to you preach forever, Marty. I appreciate it.
I love it.
But
Sermon starts tomorrow.
hey, I tell you what, I know time is precious. We really appreciate you jumping on here and providing those words to all of our viewers. We have a motto here, which is to continue to build a culture of anglers, helping anglers one cast at a time. Folks, you heard it from Mr. Marty Stone himself. Get out there, put your pocketbook where your mouth is, and make some change. Make our fisheries better. Thank you so much, Marty.
Thanks, guys.
We had great guests on today here in Martinsville, Virginia, Angler's Choice Marine annual open house. What an amazing event. I got to give a lot of credit to Mr. Hal Abshire. He extended this invitation to us, and you guys saw Hal on the show earlier this season. Actually, he was our first show of 2024. So a huge thank you to Hal Abshire. A huge thank you to Marty Stone, Matt Arey, Corey Johnston that took the time to sit down with us today. But I couldn't think of a better and more fitting way to close this show out than by having the man himself, Mr. Randy Carter from Angler's Choice Marine, sit down and close this conversation out. So, Randy, you've been running around all day with your head cut off because you know how it is, logistically speaking. These are really big events and stuff. But how do you think the event went, and what does this event mean for Angler's Choice?
First off, thanks for letting me be here. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Our event every year, it draws sales to us. It draws retail sales. It's a big part of our yearly business. Plus the goodwill that we promote here, and you saw all the people today, plus the A-list of professionals and guests you've had today. You had quite a few good ones. So, but it all helps in the umbrella of our 3 dealerships to draw sales to us later in the year. And the most important thing to Nick and Sandy is just the fellowship of it and the goodwill that it creates. So we just enjoy doing it. It's always a big task, but we've got a good crew behind us in all 3 dealerships. So it always manages to be a success, and we're really happy with it, especially this year. This has been one of our bigger shows.
That's absolutely correct. And, we talk about it with our viewers all the time. There's no better way to develop relationships in the industry and really kind of understand what it's all about until you go to trade shows and open houses, expos, things like that, maybe even to a tournament. You guys had a really unique setup this season or this year. You had this roundtable discussion that was hosted by Hal Abshire, but it had the professional anglers in a horseshoe formation, and they got to create a lot of dialogue from your customers and your viewers, and you have fans as Angler's Choice. How important was that for the interaction with the crowd, with the professional anglers?
It's the most important thing when you get those guys that represent the industry and the sport part of it to face with guys and the people in the crowd, and especially the young folks that were here today, our high school teams, things like that. That's the future of our sport.
Absolutely.
Right there. So having them interact with the crowd and all these folks, and it just builds excitement. It builds anticipation in these guys that want to get out on the water, and that's going to benefit us all in the long run. So that is tomorrow's fisherman.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And, we always talk on this show, our motto is to continue to create a culture of anglers, helping anglers one cast at a time. These trade shows, these open houses, these interactions, that's exactly what happens. Let's not forget about the other folks that are part of the equation here. You had a whole slew of vendors,
yes, sir,
that brought their product to, it's almost like bringing the cow to market, right? Like
that's
they brought
exactly
their,
right.
So your vendors, how do you guys go about choosing them, or is it open to any vendors?
We are open to anybody. As you saw today, we try to bring a mixture of things because fishermen bring their wives and wives bring the kids.
That's
so
right.
We have to have something for everybody. Without the vendors, we'd have no show. That's just as simple as that. And, we charge no booth fees, nothing to our vendors. We just appreciate them coming. We try to take care of them. We do have our Angler's Choice Youth Fishing Foundation, which they do. We ask donations to that, whether it's small, medium, large, whatever they can afford to give. We take that money, we disperse it through our community to our high school fishing teams, equipment, entry fees, travel expense, things like that. So we try to take this show, everything that we can collect and create with this show, we try to pass it along to support those folks and keep them up in fishing and keep them coming up through the ranks. And that's future sales for us and everything else. So it works good for everybody. So.
I agree. And so, we have the professional anglers here. We have the vendors here. We have the MCs that control the narrative and send the message to the people. But, professionals speak logistics and amateurs speak tactics. When it comes to the logistics, like yourself and all your staff here, you got to have a lot of gratitude and give a lot of thanks to those guys, because I'm here looking around and you folks that are listening to this, you can't see, but there are a ton of boats. There's a ton of tackle, a lot of product in here, and there's a lot of moving pieces. So how critical was your logistics team in making this happen?
That's the most important part of it. If we didn't have the support of our staff, and, you know, it doesn't look like a lot when you walk through it on Saturday, but a lot of preparation has went into this. A lot of, you know, just the menial tasks, cleaning boats, moving stuff around, and setting things up. And without the support staff, it wouldn't happen. I kind of take the lead of this every year and just kind of make sure things happen. But if there were no crew to support, there would be no show. So
that's absolutely right.
And also, the most important thing of today is the visitors that came in to see us, all the people, the patrons that came out. And I would venture a guess we probably had close to 13 to 1,500 folks come through here today, and half of that yesterday. So without those folks coming in, you know, you can have all the prep in the world, but you don't have no show without people coming to see you. So we appreciate everything. That's why we do the food in the back, the hot dogs and things like that. And our appreciation dinner last night, which you weren't here for that.
No, we only got up for today.
Hate that you weren't here for it, but it was a good night. We had live music, about 150 folks here, our vendors, the professionals, our staff, everything else.
Yeah.
So, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. We're gonna try our best to drown that audio out for the fans, but if you can just hang in there, you're gonna hear a lot of good content. You know, Angler's Choice, Martinsville, Virginia, but give us a little bit more than that. You have 3 locations, correct?
Yes, sir. We have Martinsville, Virginia here. We have Lexington, North Carolina, and Spindale, North Carolina. Now, we had our open house in Lexington last week, and it was a good show as well. Tim Pope is our general manager down there. Him and his crew done a fantastic job. A lot of our vendors, well, I'm not going to say a lot, but quite a few do all 3 shows with us. So, you know, we depend on those folks as well. And Spindale is coming up next week, February, I forget the 2nd and 3rd, I think the dates.
Okay.
But next weekend in Spindale, North Carolina, Hank Parker's going to be down there, a lot of other professionals. So, you know, if you haven't got to come to Lexington or Martinsville, by all means, you can catch Spindale and
That's right.
come experience the show. Bring the kids out. We're going to have kids activities and whatnot. So it's going to be a good weekend. It's a busy month for us, but we look forward to it every year just because of meeting folks such as yourself. You know, you guys have been here with us, all these folks, the professionals. It's just a really good time for everybody.
So folks, you heard it. There's 3 different locations that you guys can check out Angler's Choice Marine at. Where can they find you guys online?
They can go to www.anglerschoicemarine.com. All of our inventory is on there. All of our dealerships are listed. We also have our online tackle store, which we have links to that, which that's done really well for us. And as you can see, we have a fully stocked retail store here in Martinsville. Spindale and Lexington have not quite as much as we do, but they do have a selection down there. But so it's going to be exciting all the way around.
And then this is an event that you host annually, correct?
Yes, sir.
So for a vendor, if I'm a vendor looking to come and set up a booth here and sell my product or market what my service is, how do they make that happen?
All they have to do is they can contact myself. I kind of have something with all 3 of them, or they can contact the individual store, but they can reach out to us via email, on phone, whatever. All they have to do is let us know they're interested in coming, and we will welcome them with open arms.
And that something a little bit unique about that, and correct me if I'm wrong, vendors attending these shows, there's no fee associated with them setting a booth up, or there is?
No, sir. No fee whatsoever. We don't charge. The only thing, as I mentioned earlier, that we would ask is either donate a small door prize or just a donation to our fishing foundation.
That's very different than you typically see with a lot of expos and fishing shows, is you pay for booth space. So vendors, if you're listening, if you make a product, a quality product for the fishing or outdoor industry, or not even, it could be non-endemic to the fishing industry, Angler's Choice Marine probably has you covered. Randy talked about it. Reach out to him. Last question I had for you is, you talked about the in-store tackle, you talked about the online tackle, but what are the products that you carry as far as watercraft are concerned?
As far as, you mean like accessories for boats, things
vessels,
like that?
Yeah.
I'd love to list it all for you, but it would be impossible.
Yeah.
Anything you could possibly. I'm gonna stop just a second. Let that. Anything you could.
All of the Angler's
It's all right, folks. Be patient with us.
Yeah, my apologies.
No, you're good.
There's a lot going on, but anything that you can put on a boat, we can pretty much do.
Okay.
Now, when you get into the bigger stuff like stove sinks, like on the yachts, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Bass boats, center consoles, skiffs, we can pretty much rig anything that needs to be put on one.
Yeah.
Jack plates, electronics, trolling motors, aftermarket accessories such as BBT mounts, things like that.
Okay.
Just Rig It was one of our vendors. They do some quality stuff that you can install depth finders. They have trolling motor cable clips, a lot of stuff, a lot of options that you can go on. Anybody can go online and see what's
That's right.
available. Or call us. Our parts department, all of our parts managers are help people every day with stuff like that. In our service departments, if you have a question, you don't know what might work best for you, give us a call and we'll talk with you about it. See what you fish, how you fish, the depth you fish, and that goes a lot to what you might want to put on your boat as far as depth finders, things like that. So it can be a confusing thing, but we're here to help you navigate the waters, and we'd love for anybody to reach out to us anytime via phone or walk in, and we're here for you. So,
Randy, we really appreciate you extending the invitation up. Hal was very critical in this. I think this is something that we may look at doing annually because we got to meet you, a lot of great people. You folks, you heard it. You can go to www.anglerschoicemarine.com. You can look at all 3 different locations, their online tackle, in-store, all the boating and accessories that go along with it. And then on your website, last question, do you post those events as they get ready to happen, the annual events?
Yes.
Okay.
We start probably at least a month before each event, doing our advertising, things like that. And also, I forgot to mention, and Trent would not let me live it down, in addition to anglerschoicemarine.com, acmtackle.com. That's our online tackle store. A lot of good product and merchandise on there, good pricing. So visit anglerschoicemarine.com and visit acmtackle.com.
Randy, we really appreciate you having us up here. You're a part of the industry, a big part of the industry, the logistics that we talk about, which is more important than a lot of things. And people they take it for granted sometimes, and we really appreciate it. Let's continue to build a culture of anglers helping anglers one cast at a time,
That's what it's all about. And let me say thank you to you guys for coming all this way to do this. You were a valuable part of it, and we appreciate you. And I know all your listeners value you, and that you do a great job with it.
All right, appreciate it. We'll see you on the next episode.
Yes, sir.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.